Howdy folks, Little John here, and latest version of Brew School. And in this episode we're looking at doing a yeast starter. So this is the first step. Now the yeast starter is designed to get your chosen yeast up and running, get it fired up, let the cells develop, so you've got an optimum number of cells when you're pitching. The most useful really point that you're using a yeast starter is when you're doing your normal, you're doing a normal size batch, and you've got 1 pack of yeast. Now, as we've established in the past, you want 2 packs of yeast in your standard sort of 23 litre batch. With wider variances depending on your actual required number of yeast cells. But as a general rule, we need those 2 packets. Now, that pack of yeast costs you anywhere from $4 to $8 depending on what kind it is and where you're buying it. If we work on the basis of yeast is $5 a pack, which is fairly middle of the road, then that's $10 that you're spending on yeast for each batch. Now, for some brewers, that's not a problem. $10 in the big picture isn't a massive amount of money. But if we can cut that amount down considerably, then that's going to help. And if you're a kit and kilo type brewer, or you're trying to do your brewing as cheaply to save money, keep your brew costs down, while still trying to make a decent brew, get the best you can, then this is a perfect way of doing it. So we can quite simply turn this 1 packet of yeast into the equivalent of 2 packets or more, so we can pitch a nice healthy number. There's plenty of things you can do with your yeast starters, and there'll be another video coming, or this one comes out, will actually be released before it. I've just reinstigated my yeast bank, which is designed to allow to have plenty of yeast on hand at any time and to match it up. But focus of this video is simply making a starter to pitch healthy numbers into your beer. So I'm going to be using just a single pack of yeast, which we'll get into a bit later, because right now the first thing we need to be doing is getting our malt mix, or basically a small wort that we're going to use as our starter. Now, depending on what you have set up, will depend a little on what you need to do. But yeah, I have a stir plate, little one, digital home brew. This has been seen before. They're a great little bit of gear. They do cost you about $100, so they're not cheap, but they're worth the money if you're brewing consistently. With that, you need a flask. That's a 2 litre flask. Does the job for me. 3 litre would have been a better option, but 2 litres will do the job. Okay. If you don't have that equipment, as I said, there's $130, $140 worth of equipment there. You can simply use a 1.25, 1.5 litre, 2 litre empty juice bottle or a soft drink bottle. And what I'm going to do as we go through is I will do a starter on the stir plate and also in a bottle to see the differences and how they work. Both ways work. One is slightly better than the other. So, mixing up our wort, and what we want is a light gravity wort for the yeast to work in, to get started in. So the numbers that are bantered around are somewhere around 1036, 1038 gravity wort. Now that works out to be about 1 part dry malt to 10 parts of water. So for a litre of water, 100 grams of dry malt gets you around that 1036 on the gravity. 1030, depending on the malt, exactly what malt you're using. Okay, so for today's demonstration, what I've got is I've got 2 litres of water here in the pot on the little portable cooker. Obviously you can do this anywhere. You do want a decent sized pot so you're not getting a boil over. I have done the malt and the water mix in the flask directly on the stove, but it tends to boil over and makes a mess. So I prefer to just go a big pot and cool that and transfer that to the flask, which you'll see a little bit later. So that's it. I've got 2 litres of water in there, because that's going to be a litre for the flask on the stir plate, and also a litre to go into a bottle. So I need 200 grams of light malt. Now, you can weigh it out, but I do know that 1 big heaped tablespoon of the dry malt weighs about 18 grams, between 15 and 18 grams on an average. So I know that 6 tablespoons will get me pretty close to 100 grams. So if I throw 12 in there, then I'm around that 200 gram mark, and that's going to get me where I need to get the right sort of gravity. Now this is only just starting to heat up. You don't need to worry too much about the malt. The malt will dissolve as it boils, as it comes up to temperature. And obviously sanitation right now is not a big issue, because that's going to be boiled. Sanitation will become more of an issue as we go. So what I'm looking at we need to do now, let that come to a boil. Boil it for about 5-10 minutes just to kill anything that's in there. As I said, dealing with yeast, everything needs to be sanitary. You've got to be clean, you've got to be sanitised. You don't want any bugs getting in there. So we'll let that boil. Once it's boiled, we will cool that. Easiest way is just stick it in the kitchen tub, in the kitchen sink, and let it in a water bath and let it cool. Then once it's cool, you can get it into your whatever vessel you're choosing to do the starter in. So we'll leave that for now, let it boil. We'll come back a bit later once it's cooled down, and we'll get the starter actually together and get it happening. Righto, so we've moved along a little bit. The wort has now cooled. So while that was cooling, got a few bits and pieces together here. Now, so my main, I think it's the stir plate. So the flask has been sanitised. Stir bar's in there already. It's sanitised as well. It's still a touch in there. Now I've also sanitised the funnel. It's air dried, and just a mineral water bottle. Doesn't matter, you can use anything. This is the other one. This is the cheap method. If you don't have stir plate, this is your alternative. So I want to get the wort into these, and also need to get the yeast in there. Now, in here's not so bad. I can pour the packet into that without too much trouble. It's going to be a little bit harder in there. So what I'm going to do is actually pour the yeast, a bit of yeast in there first. Now, get packet's been sanitised, scissors are sanitised, everything at this point needs to be clean and sanitised. Now, I said, I'm not building this up to put into a beer at the moment. This is just simply to mainly, I want to just get it up and going, because this packet's actually out of date. It's Burton Union. You can't buy it anymore. This is one of my favourite yeasts for doing porters and stouts. So I've had this sitting here for ages waiting to sort of get it done. So this is what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to put about a quarter of a packet into the bottle here, just so we can use that to show what's going on, and the rest I'll put into the flask and build up from there. So I'm just going to get it about there. That'll do. A touch more. Alright, somewhere around a quarter of a packet into there. And while we go, we might as well just put that in there as well. Normally I'd put the wort in first and then add the yeast. The reality is I don't think it makes a real lot of difference. But I would prefer to put the wort in, get it aerated a little bit, and then add some wort onto it, but get on this way. So as I said, there's about a bit under 2 litres of wort here, so I want preferably a litre in here, so I'm going to go with the flask first. And just throw about a litre into that. That's there. And we'll do the same over here. And hopefully not knock this bottle over. So we'll be a little bit gentle. And that'll do me, because of course there's going to be a little bit of, well, there's not much muck in there, we might get it all in. Now you obviously want to keep these covered, so you're not getting any gunk in there, so I've got my foil cover here, again this has been sanitised. I'll leave that for a second. So start with the bottle, it's good to go. Just a piece of foil to cover. You could use the lid. These are coming out of my recycling. The lids have been taken off already, so just a bit of foil that's been sanitised, just to cover the top. Yeah. Just get some oxygen in there. Right. Now, I'm going to leave these here sitting out in the garage to do their thing. Now, you need to find somewhere obviously that's going to be in a nice temperature range to do what you need it to do. And that range is really anywhere from 20 to 30 degrees. As long as it's going to stay reasonably steady without fluctuating too much. Now, manufacturers recommend 25 to 30 degrees as the ideal temperature for a yeast starter. And realistically, for the average brewer at home, without sticking this into a temp controlled fermentation chamber, you're going to struggle to keep that sort of temperature. So I normally just run mine at ambient, wherever I can get closer to 20, low mid-20s. That normally means inside the house, just on the kitchen bench. The house is air conditioned and heated, so it normally sits around 21, 22 degrees, so that's a fairly good option. At the moment, out here in the garage, it's now sitting around the 23 degree mark, and the temperature is going to come off a little bit overnight, so I'm pretty confident I can maintain an adequate temperature out here for this. So at this point, I want to get this onto the stir plate. And again, I want to oxygenate, so that means just cranking it up a little bit and let it go for a little bit, get some air into it. And once I'm happy I've got a bit of oxygen in there, I'll turn that down. So what the stir plate will do, will just continually stir the yeast. So it keeps it in suspension, and it's been shown to be about twice as productive as doing, just a plain bottle. So you can see already, the yeast is already settling out in the bottom, and of course it's going to do its thing, but it's going to work. It works better on the stir plate. You get a better result. So you do sort of need to take that into account if you're working out your numbers on a online calculator. Right, so I'm happy that's got enough oxygen in it now, so crank it right down. And I'll just sit that on 4, just enough to keep it moving. So, what will happen now is that the yeast is going to go through its lag phase. It's going to soak in some moisture, it's going to reinvigorate itself. The cell walls are going to open up, it's going to grow, it's going to multiply, and we're going to increase our cell numbers. And generally what we'll find is that within, obviously 36 to 48 hours, your yeast is going to be completed doing its thing. It's basically you're making a small beer, and it will ferment out, at which stage you can chill it in the fridge if you want, or it'll just turn it off, turn the stir off, and it'll just drop out, and you can drain the liquid off the top and then pitch from there. Again, we'll have a look at that a little bit further down the track. So at the moment, I'm going to let these go. Now, obviously the stir plate's automatic, it's just going to do its thing. With the bottle, and this is the same if you're reculturing yeast from a commercial bottle, say Cooper's Pale Ale or Sparkling, or one of the Belgian beers with yeast in the bottle, where they're the same thing, but you'll add some wort to the actual bottle itself, cover it up. Then what you want to do is just every time you're walking past it, you're nearby, just give it a bit of a shake and get some, just to help bring a bit more oxygen and turn the yeast over and give it some access to the wort and the sugars, and then that will work nicely. And that's it. That's all you really need to do. So you got the stir plate. You can walk away now and leave that for 24, 48 hours without having to worry about it. And unless you're like my wife and panic, this thing, the stir plate's going to catch on fire on you. But that's all good. Check on how it's going. So we'll leave that go for now. We'll come back and have a look at it. As I said, this yeast is out of date, and I would expect it will probably take an extra 12 to 24 hours to really start coming along. But it will grow up. It will grow up some numbers, and be enough to see what it looks like once it gets going. So we'll come back in 24 to 48 hours and have another look at it and see how it's going. Okay, so it's the next day, and we've got a little bit of, we're showing some activity on the yeast. Just giving you a bit of a look at what it looks like. So this is the bottle in action. You see there's good framing krausen there on top, and plenty of action going on. Plenty of yeast moving around in there, building up a nice layer on the bottom. You can see it's blooming up out of the bottom of the bottom, no problem. So that yeast is in there, it's multiplying, it's growing, it's doing what it needs to do. So so that bottle, for those who need to use it, will work quite well. As I said, it's just a little beer going on. And stir plate's going to be a little bit harder to see, it's a bit darker in here. It's starting to develop some krausen on top, and good layer on the bottom. There's plenty of yeast getting around there. So this is the next morning. So it's only been maybe 16 hours. So you can get a quick response, and this is surprising considering this yeast is actually out of date. So it does show how hardy yeast can be if it's kept and stored alright. So we'll let these go a bit longer, and we'll come back and have a bit more of a look later on. Okay, so we're now at 48 hours into these yeast starters, and we're starting to see a bit of a difference between the two. Now, the bottle, which we've just given the occasional shake, it's still got active yeast growth going in there. It's a bit hard. It's hard to pick up, but you can see from the colour, there's still a lot more suspended yeast in there. Still a decent krausen on top. It has settled down. There's not a lot going on, but there is still action on that one. The flask from the stir plate, as you can see, it's quite lighter than the other one. There's no real visible signs of any activity going on.
the yeast has settled out, nice creamy layer on the bottom. There's still a krausen on there, and I would imagine that'll drop over the next sort of 12 hours or so. I took the flask off the stir plate after about 24 hours just to allow it to finish off. But the big thing you're noticing from these two at this time is that the flask that's been on the stir plate obviously has pretty much finished multiplying and going through the lag phase, has done what it needed to do, where the bottle is still going. So you're clearly getting a quicker response out of that flask, and that's been like that for most of the day. So it was probably around that 36-hour mark where it was pretty much done and would have been ready to pitch. Now you could ideally pitch either of these at this, like right now, but you can see in that bottle there's still blooms coming from the yeast occasionally, about one every couple of minutes. Yeah, you could pitch both of these right now onto a beer if you wanted to, no problem at all. Ideally there you'd strain off a bit of that, most of the wort liquid off the top, and then just pitch the yeast. That one's a bit more active and you could probably pitch that straight away as it is in one go. So I'm going to let them go for another 24 hours. We'll have a look how they are tomorrow, then we'll look at how we get that from the flask and get it into some vials so we can save it. Righto folks, we've gone 2 days since we last looked at these starters. They're both well and truly finished now and getting ready to take them off and put them into vials for storage. You can see there's a good whack of yeast there at the bottom of our bottle, and there's a good whack there on the bottom of the flask. Now I just want to get the stir bar out of here. Now obviously everything's been well and truly sanitised. Anything going in there, and that's just to make life a little bit easier with the mixing and whatnot. So what I want to do now is I want to get all this excess liquid off. Now I could have chilled these in the fridge, which would have made that yeast cake a little bit more solid and kept it on the bottom a bit more, but we can get off that without too much trouble. See, there's a good amount of yeast there. Now I'll pop just a little bit of cool boiled water in there. Now I don't want much, just enough so I can mix it up. I don't want to make a huge amount, otherwise I'm not going to get it into my vials. So I've got my vials. Yeah, that smells like just fresh yeast. That's good. Righto, sorry about that. Work cool. Righto. So, got the yeast swirled up, and I'm just going to pour it straight into the flask here. Now these are about a 50ml flask. Righto. Then I'm just going to do that with the rest of that and that fella, and then I'll go into the fridge, and that's it. That's how simple it is. And I can use that later for a new starter and make a new batch. So that's it. Okay, so after it's been 2 days in the fridge since we drained off our yeast, and this is just taken from the flask. So we've got two vials there. It's hard to say, the light's not the best in here. 2 vials of lovely, clean, fresh yeast. There's about a bit under 25 mils in both of those. Now, that bottle's still floating around. I'm not going to bother with that. That was, there's still another probably 20-25 mil of yeast in there again. I'm not worried about keeping that one particularly. I've got the 2. That's enough at the moment. So the other bottle was just to show how that process works. So this is what you're going to keep. You can keep this in your yeast bank, stick it in your fridge, keep it for whenever, and this is what you'll use then to make a fresh starter. So just as we did with this initially, we'll make up our wort, and we'll pitch that yeast onto it and then rebuild this back up. Now you can use an online calculator. I use Brewer's Friend yeast calculator, and you can put in your figures and work out how many yeast cells you've got and then how big your starter needs to be. And that varies immensely depending on how big what gravity your beer is, what your volume's going to be, and how many mils of yeast you're going to start with. Obviously, if you start with just 1 vial in your starter, you're going to need a bigger one than you are if you use 2. So that's something you can play around with. Now, I work on the basis that yeast now is at its absolute optimum. That's loaded up with healthy cells. I would estimate that you've got between 2 and 3 billion cells from reading and research. As much as there's evidence for as much as 3 billion cells per milliliter of yeast. So you can use that as your starting figure to use it with your calculations, and you can move forward from that. Get on the calculator and it'll show you how to do it. They're simple to use. But I can keep that now for pretty much as long as I want to, because even in 12 months time, 18 months, 2 years time, there's still going to be some viable cells in there that I can work with enough to build up and reuse it. So that's it. Nice fresh clean yeast, easy. I've taken 1 packet of dry yeast for $5, and there's something nasty moving around in my bloody garage. Fuck knows what it is. Probably a bloody snake. That's not good. Anyway, one of those vials would be plenty to right now. Would be plenty to pitch onto a standard 23 litre batch of mid 1040 gravity beer. If it sits for once it starts sitting for a while, then obviously with that calculator we might need to make a starter. But you can go ahead with that. Pitch 1, keep 1 if you wanted to. Right, so straight away you've got 2 beers at least out of your 1 pack of yeast with very little effort. Okay, so that's it. Yeast starters. Hopefully that's covered pretty much everything you're going to need to know about them. If you want to ask any questions, clarify anything, stick a comment down the bottom. Hit the subscribe button down there if you haven't already. So you know and you get a notification when there's a new video up. Right, little Johns, we'll be back. More experiments and things going forward. Just what we do. So until I'm looking at you again, good brewing.